Hello, I have perfected rental on Steam by collecting all 9 achievements. This includes speaking to my family, adding to my wardrobe, completing the game in less than 10 minutes, and a few more we'll touch on a bit later. Welcome to my full review. Rental is a free, short, and spooky adventure game being developed by Lonely House and published by the Animita Project, a collective formed by Lonely House, Fishbowl Team, and Studio Voyager, being described by its community as a mixture between Animal Crossing and Silent Hill. Starting off with the settings, when you boot up the game, you'll have the option to choose your language. This is the only option in the entire game. An audio slider at the very least would have been a nice addition, especially with how loud the game starts. As for the technical side of things, please note I'm running this off a low to high-end PC, so how this performs for me might not perform the same for you. With that being said, you should be able to run this off literally anything, including the laptop your grandma uses to play Resident Evil. If it can boot up the Steam store without lagging, you will most likely have no issues here. As for the difficulty, there are no difficulty options. It will come down to your patience and if you have any trouble finding the objects you require. Speaking of the gameplay, in short, Rental is a 15-minute walking simulator with a focus on the horror of renting a house in an unknown location. As mentioned before, the game is completely free to play, so if you like the aesthetic, which is great by the way, go give it a play before watching the rest of my review. There isn't much I can say or show going forward without spoiling the entire game. This is your warning. That being said, the gameplay loop of Rental is technically sectioned into 4 parts. Part 1 is talking to your family to understand you play the main character named Yumi, then also realizing it's a fixed camera type of vibe. Part 2 is becoming trapped inside your new rental house and having to collect a bunch of different religious items hidden within it, all while being stunned by an unknown figure which sadly cannot hurt you. Part 3 is a first-person perspective labyrinth made up of only mirrors, searching for the final 3 objects, which just so happen to be crosses. And Part 4 is placing them all within an invisible summoning circle, speaking some funny words, and completing the game. My only complaint is the maze. It's the worst part of the entire game. What makes it horrible for me is the motion sickness it provides. The rough visuals, first person, whack controls, and the mirror effect all mushed together is a literal headache. The controls randomly become very Doom-like, only allowing you to turn left and right with no verticality. I do think it's a unique ending piece, as everything here is to make you feel uneasy, and the game itself is heavily inspired by classic horror games, but the unintended motion sickness I obtained while playing made it heavily unenjoyable for me. So if you suffer with motion sickness, a quick heads up here. Thankfully this section does not last very long unless you get yourself lost. Now the overall aesthetic, as mentioned before, is quite marvelous. The world itself, however, is incredibly simple, which I'm sure you've noticed. But there isn't all that to explore, nor are you given the option to do so past what it wants you to. Fine for what the game is, but I still tried. As for the audio, outside of the game itself being incredibly loud at times, there were no issues, and the majority of audio is ambient or Animal Crossing-like gibberish. The music, if we can call it that, is all very eerie with off-putting tones. Very fitting. Everything in the audio department kept me immersed enough, and that's all you can really ask for. Hey, you've made it to the stories section and my thoughts on it. I won't be covering the spoilers in depth, but if you would like to avoid them, skip ahead to the positive and negative section below. Ready? Okay. At face value, the story is incredibly simple. You play as Yumi. Your family rents a cabin for summer vacation. You get scammed by a presumably demonic force. You will now obtain religious objects to exorcise it, and then eventually get crushed back into a never-ending loop. There are 2 separate endings you can obtain, both pointing in the same direction of it being a loop. However, with that being said, there's a lot open for interpretation. So is it really a loop? I don't know. There are a lot of small details that can go overlooked while playing, which I think could lead to many great theories. What is the force stopping you in your tracks? Why does Yumi disrespect or at the very least not know of religious figures? Why can the landlord randomly pop in and out of existence? There are so many questions, and yet there are no answers. However, the one answer I did obtain was with the one thing that threw me off the most. While you're performing your ritual, you say some really random words, which after doing some research, I learned is a spell from the anime Magical Do-Re-Mi. How it correlates, I have no idea. Speaking of theories, I noticed the publishers are named the Animita Project. Here's a fun fact. Animita is normally a roadside shrine, usually a handmade house for a wandering soul who passed away from their home. The shrine is for remembering and wishing for them not to be alone. With the loop situation going on, perhaps Yumi is the one wandering. Something to think about. Overall, I love the attention to detail and the obvious encouragement for theorists to rip this game apart. I'm excited to see what the community comes up with and if the devs will ever expand upon this concept. As mentioned before, there are a total of 9 achievements, all of which took me 54 minutes to obtain. I will not be mentioning the ones handed to you just by playing, however, let's start with We Are Family twice. All you do is speak to your family twice in one playthrough. You'd assume one is good enough, but it's not. Short-term rental is to, the rental girl is for obtaining all other achievements. I just wanted to include this as I love when games do this for a final achievement. It seems much rarer to come by nowadays. The hardest achievement award will be going to Curious Bunny, which is to interact with all items in the house. This one took me the longest to obtain and honestly was quite annoying. You need to do exactly what it says and interact with everything including windows, cabinets, toilets, so forth. The last hidden interaction I was missing was tucked away from view behind a wall. The devs did seem to patch this problem out while I was making this review, so big ups for that. Now let's go over some of the positives. It's a unique mixture of cute and horror. The game is free to play, making it a must try if you have the smallest bit of interest. It's short. This can be a negative as I usually prefer longer titles, but it doesn't overstay its welcome and I think it's perfect for what it is. As for the only negative, you just can't lose. There are no threats, and if you know that going in, it can ruin the experience, but that's pretty much it. Regardless, I honestly quite enjoyed this style of horror. I think this game is a great example of a beginner horror game for those too scared to handle chases, jump scares, or other such threats. For only at most an hour of your day, it's worth the playthrough. Rental, currently available for free on the Steam storefront with an optional $4 or regional equivalent DLC. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, let me know your thoughts down below or what game I should complete next. Subscribe so you never miss a video, and until next time, take care.